What's up, everybody? Hey, welcome back to the show. Today, I have my buddy Jon Nolen. He's an Investor Fuel member, of course, because all of our guests are. And he operates in the Oklahoma City market. And he left his corporate job after having to, really, for family reasons, some other things that we're going to get into today. So we're going to talk a lot today about kind of lifestyle design, how you build a business that serves you instead of building a business. And if there's anything left, you might get a little life to live. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Professional real estate investors know that it's not really about the real estate. In fact, real estate is just a vehicle to freedom. A group of over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors from across the country meet several times a year at the Investor Fuel Real Estate Mastermind to share ideas on how to strengthen each other's businesses, but also to come together as friends and build more fulfilling lives for all of those around us. On today's show, we're going to continue our conversation of fueling our businesses and fueling our lives. I'm glad you're here. Hey, Jon, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Good to see you, buddy. It's actually, it's a little inside joke with you and I, but we actually were in Yellowstone just last week, actually just 4 days ago. We kind of parted. So it hasn't been that long since we've seen each other, but that was a good time out there, right?
That was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing on several fronts, but we really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we went, for those of you that are listening, we took a group of Investor Fuel members out to Yellowstone, and right now it's, early March. So we were snowmobiling and dog sledding and just kind of hanging out. Of course, folks like us can't help but talk about business the whole time we're there anyway, because that's what we do. But it was a good time for sure. So Jon, excited to have you here and hear your story and learn a little bit about how, hopefully people that are listening will learn a little bit about how to build a business around. I mean, sometimes people do it from necessity because you have some health issues in your family or whatever. I know you've had some of those issues, but whether you have those issues or not, it's just important to forget that the tail's not wagging the dog, right? Where it's so easy for us to get into business and put everything into that and neglect everything else, family, health, all kinds of other things. Why we got into the business in the first place was freedom. And then sometimes that all gets thrown out the door because we're just stuck living deal to deal because we haven't really scaled our business. But why don't you kind of tell us a little about your backstory and kind of when you left corporate America and jumped into real estate?
Okay. Yeah. My backstory, a shortened version, I spent some time in the military. I was in the Marine Corps, got out, went overseas, contracted over there in IT stuff for a few years, came back, and I worked for a pharmacy software company. Did everything from development and training to administration. When I left, I was the VP of IT. I was there for about 10 years. Opportunity came as a good time for me to transition. Had some health stuff going on with my kids and moved. Thought a consulting job would be a better fit. So I did information security consulting for a little while. Worked for a great company, amazing coworkers. But as my kids' health stuff got worse, I just wasn't able to commit 40 hours to them. And that wasn't fair to them to ask them to. They probably would have let me go part-time if I wanted, but that wasn't fair to them or the clients. So about 3 years ago, I, along with my wife, decided I would go full-time into real estate investing, knowing that at that point it was going to be less than 40 hours. So that's kind of how I got into full-time investing. I'd invested, 3 or 4 years before that part-time, a little bit of flipping, a little bit of rentals, but nothing major up until then.
Yeah. What's interesting is, and I've been investing for 12 years now full-time, and I hadn't really started talking about this until recently. Because I've always been a little bit down on corporate America because I worked so hard to kind of climb the ladder and just kept getting fired or company files bankruptcy or things like that. I was kind of down on corporate America, but the truth is I definitely owe some of my success, and we're going to talk about scaling here and kind of the case for scaling, I think a little bit, is some of the success to taking some of the lessons you learned, good, bad, or ugly, out of corporate America to just a corporate structure and the importance of systems and processes. And obviously you're a software guy, so I know you believe in that anyway, but kind of applying those lessons learned to a small business, which honestly needs to run just as if it's a Fortune 500 company. You don't have those same resources. You don't have those big teams, but it's still a business that it needs to have that structure in place, right?
Yeah, the fundamentals still need to be there. You still have to have the good foundation.
Yep.
And that software company I worked for is a family company, and they were very strong. They grew very well, but they were, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but they would wait until they absolutely really had to hire somebody before they would, because just being cautious and things of that nature, which
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. But we've taken a different approach to our business because I needed to scale it faster, so I could replace my income and then eventually my wife's income when she left corporate work as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. So talk about that. So you and we used to talk about this a little bit before we started recording here, which is your approach to, because you're right, a lot of real estate investors wait until something's broken or until somebody leaves, let's say, or until you're kind of too far into the mix before they spend the money to recruit somebody. And then there's another train of thought, which is it's an investment, and yes, they're not going to have a return. You're not going to have a return on that investment right away, but long term, it's a good decision. So talk about kind of that. It's intuitive to say it, but a lot of us don't do it because we're just, as real estate investors, we're often kind of cheap and frugal, right?
Yeah, we don't want to spend the money. We don't see it as a profit generator, so we don't want to spend it. And coming from IT, I've seen that side. I mean, IT doesn't generate revenue, so it's hard to get funding and hard to get your budget set. But yeah, we knew we wanted to scale. We knew that I could not do this on my own. My wife still had her corporate job, which paid very well. And we needed to grow. And so we thought real hard about, do we hire an acquisitions manager first, or do we hire a lead manager or coordinator first? I was of the opinion very strongly at first that I needed a buyer. I needed to get an acquisitions manager so I could make more money, buy more houses, sign more houses to pay for a coordinator. And my wife, very smart, she talked me through it and helped me realize that, no, we need to get the foundation set first. Yes, it was going to cost some more money up front, but in the long run, getting that foundation was going to be worth it. So we hired a leads manager. And then after that, we added, at one point, we had 3 buyers, including myself. Later on down the road, a little over a year ago, had an opportunity to hire somebody good off here in the office. Great girl, known her for quite a long time. Didn't really have a need for her at that point, but when you have an opportunity to hire somebody that you know is going to be a great employee and is going to work hard, can learn. She didn't know everything at the beginning, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You take a chance on it, and you put yourself out there. That's what we did, and now she does pretty much all of our office work, as well as managing our rental fleet.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So let's talk about a little bit about the case for kind of scaling. So this is one of the hardest things that a lot of people have is bridging that gap. They can't leave a good paying job. Now, the truth is like in my instance, I had a really good paying job, but I just lost it one day.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, twice actually. Once I got fired, and then once I actually left on my own the second time. But right after the company, I knew they were about to file for bankruptcy, and I was like, hey, they're not dying right now. It took 2 or 3 years for them to die. But when you go through a bankruptcy process, usually, in this instance, it was a retailer. So usually it's just a lifeline towards the inevitable. But it's just, things get buttoned up. Like the heydays were over, let's say, and the opportunity for me was over because I was a growth guy. So, but a lot of people in that situation, they're like, I'm not saying they're necessarily living paycheck to paycheck, which I think the average American is, but you don't have usually a ton of savings to kind of bridge that gap. So a lot of people, they know they're here and they know they want to get over here. And it's just to bridge that gap between the two things is the hard part. And truthfully, so what happens is a lot of people, they go to a weekend seminar and they think they're going to start investing part-time. You were doing some of that too, right? You bridge the gap, but a lot of people, they just never have the time to treat it like a real business. And therefore that part-time hobby can't offset your income. So just talk about kind of the case for scaling, like how to get in business and scale quickly so that you can, justify that leap.
Yeah. For me, we worked backwards. We knew what kind of income we needed to replace. And we worked backwards from there. But then we also knew that I didn't want to just replace the income that I was making. I wanted to do better.
Right.
I'm somebody who, to a fault sometimes, wants to do everything bigger and better. It's the way I am.
Yeah.
I don't appear competitive a lot of times, but I am very competitive, especially with myself.
Yeah.
And that's why I ended up running a marathon when I shouldn't have. But that's a whole other story. Yeah, we knew what kind of income we needed to replace, and so we backed into our numbers. Talked to a number of investors here in Oklahoma City, knew what the market was like, and kind of just went backwards into that.
Yeah.
Then
So
later,
let's talk about, and you know, for that is true, because a lot of people don't really understand. They just like, well, I'm going to go do deals. But if you know your average margin, you know, if you're going to wholesale versus an average margin, if you're going to retail, you can say, okay, well, to make $100,000, here's what I need to do, right? You can kind of back into, okay, this overhead's going to cost me this much. Lead generation is the important part, right? This is going to cost me this much. And so, I mean, I would advocate, I've been coaching and mentoring for a long, long time. There's so many people that if you say, hey, it's going to cost you, just make it up, $4,000 in advertising to buy a house. And in order to hit your goals, you need to do 3 a month. So you need to spend $12,000, hit your goal. And they're like, oh yeah, I get it. And then they're like, yeah, I just started my advertising. I started with $2,000. You're like, well, you're not going to hit your goal. What? Like, there's no magic that's going to like somehow come into effect that's going to replace math, at the end of the day. And so people just like, they just kind of, don't invest in, you talked about investing in people. You also have to invest in advertising, right? To help kind of feed that funnel.
Yeah, you need to invest in advertising. You also need to invest in yourself. There's a lot of people that go to RIAs, and yeah, you're investing in your time into that and stuff, but you need to do more to invest in yourself. I was never a reader. It just, I couldn't do it. I'd fall asleep. It just bored me.
Yeah.
In the last 3.5, 4 years, I use Audible because I drive a lot. So it's not physically reading, but I use that as self-development time. I do things like Investor Fuel for self-development.
Yeah.
I promote with my employees self-development. I've started doing some life mentoring coaching with some of my employees, just on topics that they would like to improve in. One of them wants to understand our numbers better on how I make decisions. Sure, let's go. Let's do it. Let's analyze some deals.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that right after this, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's one of the things I struggled with for a long time is when I first started as a business owner, we kept kind of the management close to the vest. Like we're just, at that time I was still fairly young and naive. We got some level of, I might have a small amount of business maturity that's happened over the years here, but people tend to, when they're a small business, I think a lot of investors are like this, like I don't share my financials with my team but what happens is you end up having, there's kind of two sides of the story, right? But what happens is you have people that don't really understand the struggle. So they just think, well, I'm doing all the work and they're making all the money. It's like, you don't really understand how much money I'm making exactly. And part of it is you don't really understand how the P&L flows. Like you don't really understand all the expenses, all the risk. I've got insurance on all this stuff, like all these things that just add up, right?
Yep. And then how the P&L in your balance sheet can look great. The cash flow is a completely separate game.
Right.
And if you're not managing your cash flow, then it doesn't matter. You're going to get stuck in a spot where you can't pay somebody. And that's not a good spot. So,
yeah.
And right now, we don't share our full financials with them. But with her, it's my acquisitions manager. She wants to understand why sometimes I'm saying, yeah, I'm going to keep that as a rental, or she may see one go, I think this is going to be a good rental for you to keep. And I go, are you crazy? No, not for me.
Right.
So we're going to go through that so she can learn. And I think it'll be good. But we really, really work on investing in the people, because for us to continue growing, it's not just me. It can't just be me.
Right.
More and more out of the day-to-day.
Yeah. So you talked about, investing in yourself, and kind of like basically could be coaching. It could be, like you said, Audible, like listening to books, consuming books and content. Could be podcasts that you listen to. What's interesting to me is I obviously do a lot of stuff in real estate. I've always listened to a bunch of real estate podcasts and watch videos and stuff. And lately this is kind of crazy. I didn't do this a long time ago, but kind of broadened out and listened to a lot of like kind of business type stuff that's not necessarily real estate related. It's not real estate related at all, actually. And it's just a different perspective. It's refreshing. And honestly, I learned so much from it. I'll just tell you, there's this podcast called Business Wars that I've been listening to lately, and it is amazing. And it's, right now I'm listening to the one that's actually going right now, which they can't keep up with me. They're not putting them out fast enough, is Starbucks versus Dunkin' Donuts. So it kind of pits two companies. So there's another one I'm listening to, which is an older one. So when I'm done with the Starbucks versus Dunkin' Donuts, I'm going back to an older one, which is Southwest Airlines versus American Airlines. But a lot of these stories are like 3 or 4 hours long. They usually have like 30-minute segments, and there's 6 or 8 of them. And it's just fascinating to hear. It's a little bit of a biography. Some of it is probably made up because they don't know the whole story. But I guess that's how all movies are anyway. Even if it says based on a true story, it's like loosely based on. Yeah. But just to hear the decisions that were made, the struggles they went through, like they almost collapsed and then they came roaring back, and like those things are really just huge lessons learned for any business owner. So check out Business Wars if you haven't heard of that yet.
Yeah, I'll check that out. And that made me think of Shoe Dog, Phil Knight, his autobiography.
Yeah.
That was a very, very long book, but man, hearing about the struggles that he went through, that made me feel good, because some of those are the same that we have. We're trying to grow, so you need capital. So you can't just replace your income. You have to do more so you can grow and invest back in the business. But yeah, his book was great. Elon Musk's biography, if you haven't read that, that is very, very interesting to hear how
check that out. Yeah. Yeah. I'd advocate. So you're obviously a member of Investor Fuel. And one of the things, I know we both believe a lot in surrounding ourselves with people that are like us, or people that hopefully are even ahead of us, have kind of, gone down the path that we're going down before, so you can learn from that. So even though, Elon Musk and Phil Knight are not in our mastermind, for example, there's a lot of people, it's much more relevant, right? Because they're in our subject matter. I mean, just talk about the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people, in terms of, how it's impacted you.
Oh, it's huge. I've really looked for a community of some kind to be involved with since I've been in real estate full time. And typically what I've found is it's either all newbies or a bunch of people that are very experienced that really don't care about helping people that are somewhere in the middle or whatnot. So getting around people that are successful, but then also having some people that maybe are successful but not as successful as you, having that good mix and everybody being able to work together, share, that's huge, because so often I've met people at different conferences and such, and they know a lot, but they really don't have any interest in sharing. And that's fine. I'm not saying anything bad against that or against them. That's their choice, their time. But for instance, our trip to Yellowstone, I picked everybody's brain. We talked about business. There's some things that I'm doing that people are like, oh, wow, let me hear more about that. And that kind of made me go, you want to hear from me? Oh, that's kind of cool. I want to hear from you. So being around people like that is huge. I've already made several personal friendships in Fuel. So that helps both sides of the equation. I try to focus on my improvement, not just business, but some personal, some business.
It's like you said, it's an investment in people. Like when you're bringing people on your team, it's an investment in advertising, right? And I think even joining a mastermind, I mean, masterminds like ours are not cheap, but I think, for a lot of people that come in, they get way more than the cost back in value, sometimes in real dollars and cents, by like all of a sudden they're doing deals with people or finding something. But I think it's an investment. It's kind of betting a little bit on yourself and betting on the benefit that you'll get, because it's not always immediate. I think in our instance, sometimes we try to make it immediate for people. Like if you come in and we have discounts from different vendors and stuff like that, it might actually, depending on how much you're advertising, it might pay for your whole membership just by getting a discount to something you didn't have before. But I think there's a little bit of faith that has to go into it, that you are that investment's going to have a great ROI. But I think one of the benefits of a group like ours, or any kind of high level mastermind or group, is that if you can get to a point to where, and this is the culture we've tried to build, and I know this, is or it's based on giving, because people start to feel like, wow, I feel like I need to give more because I've gotten so much, right?
Yep.
And so sometimes you can't really get that at a RIA club, and you can't get it at because the experience level is too low, and you can't get it at even a local event sometimes, because usually it's all local investors and they're just not as open as they are when they get around a broader kind of national audience.
Right. And something, and I know you won't take this the wrong way, but something I like about Fuels, it's not the Mike Handbright show.
Yeah. I don't want it to be the Mike Hambright show. I'm not a, I don't want, I couldn't serve. The cool thing about it is, it's funny that you said that, because I just did a video. I just did something on that yesterday, but it's not, it's peer to peer, right? It's like I'm there facilitating, but it's not, I have experience, don't get me wrong, but my experience at the end of the day is pretty narrow compared to the think tank of everybody coming together. And so, I just try to facilitate the members, and obviously Stinson does too. We all just try to kind of curate the conversations and connections and stuff like that, so that people get what they need, because what I can offer from my experiences is narrow, but when I can connect people with other people that I think would help, it's the value is much bigger, right?
Yeah, it is. And there's so many other things that come out of Fuel for me personally, that they all very purposefully put in there, such as the being intentional with your goals and being accountable, having to get up every quarter and talk in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Being vulnerable for me, former Marine, that's not easy. I don't, I keep everything close, but when you are able to open up and share, and that comes with the go-giver mentality. Everybody's wanting to help. So It's okay to expose your flaws.
Yeah. Yeah. You talked a little bit about, we talked up front about kind of building a business around your life. And, I think a lot of people are, once you jump into real estate, we're kind of like in this, there's a little bit of badge of honor lately around hustle, like hustling hard. And, we all work hard when we have to, there's no doubt about it, but it's not, for me, I work hard, but I don't go on social media and say, just put in another 90-hour week, man. Or like, sometimes people are bragging about the hustle instead of the result from the hustle. And I think, there's something a little wrong there. Thanks to Gary Vee for convincing everybody they need to work their face off and be proud about it. But, I think nobody here is not willing to work hard if they have to, but that's not the goal. But I think what ends up happening is people get caught up in that. And we start to, because I don't know about you, a lot of us grew up with very little. Like I grew up pretty poor in the grand scheme of things. And some people, it's like they celebrate the struggle because they've always been in it. And it's like the goal is to get out of it, right? But anyway, some people end up building if there's anything left after they've built their business, then that's their life, right? And they're just like, man, I can't do that. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. Instead of building a business that kind of serves them and serves the lifestyle that they want and the freedom and flexibility. So talk a little bit about that, because that's kind of why you went out on your own. Just talk about the importance of building your business around serving you.
Yeah. Like I said, one of the reasons why I left was because of my kids and appointments. I have 3 kids. They all have major medical issues. They're all great kids. They're not, we're fortunate that they're not more dire medical issues, but they have a lot of appointments. Well, an employer wants you to be there. Typically, that's how they make money.
Right.
So that's where it started, was being able to take the kids to multiple appointments every week. At one point, we were having to fly up to New York every 2 weeks with one of my daughters to see specialists. It's real expensive, but it's also a lot of time off.
Yeah.
And before that, we were fortunate to be able to have a lot of flexibility in our work. But then with the transition, that wasn't there. So I had to build everything around that. As the kids go through their waves of having surgeries or appointments, there's times that I can just say, guys, I'm not going to be here. Y'all have the show. I have my rehab coordinator. I have my acquisitions manager. I have my property manager. I have all these people on my team that embrace what my goals are for me personally, and that's being able to leave whenever I need to.
Yeah.
So that's been a very, very key aspect is when I've built my team, I've built them around people who aren't selfish, that want the whole team to grow, but also realize I want to be able to step out and lead for a month with, if I need to. Now,
Right.
that being said, I still email. I still have access to text. I still have access to email. I'm not completely gone. But we spend a lot of time traveling as well. We have a cabin in Colorado that we go up to 3-4 times a year. Um, we have satellite internet up there, no cell service. And the satellite internet, basically, you can use iMessage and that's it. Nothing else is going to work because it's satellite. And that is my happy place. I have my wife there. I have my kids there. They can go out and play. We have 17 acres. And I can just relax.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. We can go on trips like we did to Yellowstone. I am able to go to Fuel 4 times a year. And being able to then take these blocks, these chunks of time in my calendar and then work around it.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's, when you're an entrepreneur and you're kind of hard charging, like you're willing to work hard whenever you have to. Again, I don't believe that's the goal. It's really easy to fill up time with work.
Oh
I
yeah.
found. And so we travel a lot. Sometimes people give me a hard time for it, but the truth is I work while I'm gone too, just like you. I mean, I try to enjoy myself during the day or the activity, but then I go crank for a couple hours here and there as needed. But when I'm not traveling, I work hard to get caught up or whatever I have to do. So, but I've kind of built my business for the most part around being able to be more virtual than I was in the past. I mean, I approved every deal we bought. I look at every house. I was actually at acquisitions for a long time. And so it's just like that didn't provide the lifestyle I wanted, and eventually was able to find a way to simplify that. But what I found is, as entrepreneur, like I'm the type of guy, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs is if you're not traveling or you're not doing something to go enjoy your life or have some hobby that you can tie into, then I'm just going to break shit just to fix it because I need to feel like I'm busy. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are that way, but by forcing ourselves to say, "Hey, we booked a trip, like we're going, it's happening," then nothing falls apart really. But I just filled up that time with something that I enjoy doing instead of something that I, felt like I had to do.
Yeah. And a joke that my staff has, in January, Amy and I went to LA for, I don't know, a few days, weeks, something like that. And the joke became, when you're gone, everything goes better. We get more done.
Yeah.
And it tongue in cheek, but it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a great team. They do stuff well. That allows us to do that.
Yep. Yep. Awesome. Well, John, you talked a little bit about, we talked a little bit about fuel here and kind of, purpose of surrounding yourself with the right people. Would you mind just kind of sharing a testimonial of
Oh,
what the group is kind of meant for you and your business over the time you've been as a member?
of course, it's been huge, and it's lots of little things. A lot of times people look for this one big nugget, this big hunk of gold that's going to do it. It's lots of little things, and really it comes down to the personal connections that I'm making with so many people. People that are known in the industry, like yourself, people that aren't known, but they're doing great, and getting those little chunks of knowledge from them through just interacting with them. It's been amazing for us, and we're going through a transition right now, and it's very. I couldn't do it without it.
Awesome. Appreciate that. So yeah, I think that's one of the things we try to convey in the group is like we all go through ups and downs, and we all go through good times and bad times. I mean, that's kind of the nature of our business and cycles in the industry, cycles in the market, all that stuff. And I think we all know that. So it's helpful to have somebody there that kind of has your back. And there's people that are crushing it right now, and there's people that are not crushing it as much as they used to. They're having a struggle, or they're going through some sort of transition. But I think that's the value of the group, is saying I've got kind of a family there to help me, support me no matter where I'm at.
Yeah, and you just hit it right there. Family. I can reach out to a number of people. I can text them. I can call them. I can email them. Jump on Facebook if I need something. Our group is great about responding on Facebook, and helping each other. But you said family. That made me think of just before Christmas, when we found out that Addison may need spinal cord surgery again, which we're still going through that path trying to find out. Last time she had surgery, she had an open wound on her back for 2.5 years. Her body wouldn't heal. So that was very emotionally taxing on us. And she's still sleeping with a blanket that Fuel sent her when they found out about that.
Yeah. It's awesome.
So it's not just impacting me. That personal connection has impacted my 10-year-old daughter. And
yeah, that's awesome.
Every night.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Cool. Well, we're definitely wishing her the best. I know you're still going through some issues there. So thanks for sharing your time and your story with us today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Hopefully it's be beneficial for somebody.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of people that honestly are, probably in a struggle. On the outside, it looks like their business is going well, but they know that it's a little bit fragile. All of our businesses are a little bit fragile, right? I mean, heck, we got all this coronavirus stuff going on right now. Like, it just seems like the sky is falling, but it's more fear based. At some point, all this perception becomes reality just because of all the fear. So, who knows how this is going to impact real estate investing businesses? Definitely impacting the travel industry and professional sports now and everything else. So, yeah, but the good thing is, I think, for folks that are listening to this right now, in every kind of adverse thing that happens, there's plenty of opportunity there too. So you always have to be looking for not how bad it is, but like with all this stuff that's going on, where are the opportunities at? How can I serve somebody and benefit in the process and have win-win situations?
Yeah, and a lot of that's mindset. I mean, for example, real estate investors, we've all had that person call screaming and cussing because they got a postcard in the mail. And people get upset that they paid so much for that card. Think about how much money you make or how many people you help every time you send out your mail or whatever it takes. That's also where a lot of it is helping people.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, John, if folks wanted to get a hold of you, reach out in any way or connect, where's a good place for them to go?
Best for me are Instagram or Facebook. On Facebook, I'm just Jon S. Nolen, no H, just JONSNOLEN. Or on Instagram, the flippin' IT guy. Most people think it's the flipping it guy, but with my IT background,
I thought it was too until you just said that. I was like, okay, it makes sense.
Flippin' IT guy. Those are the two best ways to get a hold of me. I only check my email once or twice a day, but I check social media a decent amount.
Yeah, cool. We'll have those links down below in the show notes here. So thanks again for sharing your message with us today and sharing your story.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Everybody, hey, thanks for joining us today. Hope you got some good value out of John's story here and kind of, just the discussion around building a business around your life. Building a business that serves your life, right? We all aspire to have this freedom and then get caught up in the mix and the hustle. And so we talk a lot about that at our Investor Fuel Mastermind. If you're actively doing deals and whether you're doing a deal or two a month or whether you're doing hundreds of deals a year, we'd love to talk to you about the Investor Fuel Mastermind. Our next event's actually coming up here pretty quickly. So we'd love to see you there if it makes sense. Just check out investorfuel.com to learn more. If you haven't already subscribed to the show, we'd love it if you subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, YouTube, anywhere where you're watching and listening to this right now. Make sure you subscribe. And if you could give some positive feedback, we'd love that. So appreciate you. See you on the next show. Are you an active real estate investor? If so, and you want to latch on to the power of surrounding yourself with over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors, all committed to building stronger businesses and living richer, fuller lives, you should jump on a call with us to learn more about Investor Fuel. Simply visit investorfuel.com to get started.